Hello everyone, this is Steve Smith with ApplicantPro, another edition of Inside MFG. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about ghosting. We're going to cover one side of ghosting. Ghosting is basically applicants who disappear, right? We start the process with them. Sometimes we're just trying to get a hold of them for the phone screen. We're trying to get a hold of them during the interview process. And for whatever reason, they never communicate with us again. Well, there is one area of ghosting that a lot of manufacturing organizations don't think about, and that is the application process. The reason this part of the process is so important is because you could be losing a lot of applicants without even realizing it. And so there are three elements of the application process that you have to consider. So the first one is that of mobile technology. You have to remember that in general today, most job seekers, about 83% of them, are actually starting their job search on a mobile device. So if your process and the searchability is not mobile friendly, you could be losing those applicants right off the bat. But in manufacturing, it's actually closer to 90% for a lot of your production line workers, because most of them, sometimes they don't even have internet access at home, but they do have it on their phone. And so most of them will conduct their job search from a mobile device. So if you can imagine for a moment, as they start that process and they start to apply for a position with your organization, if it's clunky or it's not very user-friendly as they're using their mobile phone, you're going to lose them. They're going to abandon the process. For those that do make it through, once they get to the interview stage, there is a much higher chance of them to ghost you at that point because of the fact that they remember what it was like to apply in the first place. And so that mobile friendliness factor is so important. So for those of you that are using applicant tracking systems or just your website as you receive applications, number one, you have to make sure that that process is mobile friendly. Now, the second aspect is the time frame. So today, applicants treat hiring a lot like dating. In dating apps, we either swipe left or we swipe right. Left basically says, hey, I'm not interested. But swiping right says, hey, I think there's a match here. If you think there's a match too, let's connect. And that's how applicants treat hiring today and applying for a position. They just want to swipe right and make it simple. And so in our research, what we have found is that after 4 minutes, if your application is longer than 4 minutes, for every additional minute your application takes the applicant to fill it out, you'll lose 50% of those applications. So imagine that for a moment. You could be losing a ton of applicants if your actual application is just this elongated process. And so what most of our clients are doing is they're switching to what we call a two-stage, where they allow some of the basic information up front, which is kind of like that swipe right to match. And then later on in the process, for certain candidates, as they continue, then they're invited to fill out the second stage of the application. It makes it much simpler for the applicants, and it allows it to be simple up front so that they're not spending more than 4 minutes to actually submit their application to you. The last thing is a concept called redirect. And this has everything to do with a lot of the major job boards today. Several years ago, the most common thing was a concept called resume parsing, where a candidate could load their resume and it would parse all the information into the application, make it a lot simpler for them to apply, right? But it only worked about 80% of the time. And in fact, a lot of applicants would get frustrated because when it would insert the information, sometimes it would insert it into the wrong place. And so then the applicant would spend more time trying to fix it than they would actually filling out the application. Well, today, what is quickly replacing resume parsing is a concept called profile parsing. Profile parsing is where an applicant can actually use their profile to apply. And the cool part about profile parsing, it is 100% accurate because of the way most applicant tracking systems build it to the actual job board. So when you look at places like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Glassdoor and LinkedIn, an applicant has the ability to use their profile to apply, and because of that, it's 100% accurate, and it's much more popular than resume parsing used to be. And so that's an extremely important part of the process. Now, with the introduction of profile parsing, you had this redirect concept. So a lot of tracking systems function via redirect. So for example, if I find your job on Indeed and I click to apply, it will either redirect me over to the applicant tracking system or to the company website, and then I'm prompted to apply. The reason that's a challenge, and Indeed researched this, in that redirect, you'll lose about 70% of your applicants. So as soon as they get redirected, they have to start their search over. They have to fill out all their information from scratch. And so it causes a lot of them to just simply abandon the process. Well, in our research, especially in the manufacturing world, we actually showed that it's closer to 80% of drop-offs. So when a candidate clicks on your ad, if they get redirected from Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, whatever job board, and they get redirected, you're going to lose about 80% of those applicants right off the bat because they don't want to take the time to restart their search and go through that whole entire process again. They would much prefer to have that easy apply or quick apply integration. So when you think about your process, if your applicant tracking system or your application process does not allow for the quick apply or easy apply options that are available in most job boards today, you are actually missing out on a huge chunk of applications that you could be getting otherwise. So that's this edition of Inside MFG.